Okay, also ich begrüße Sie alle und heiße Sie herzlich willkommen zu der digitalen Veranstaltung mit dem Titel Untersuchung der DO's Cultural Theory bei den industriellen kleinen und mittelständischen Unternehmen unter Berücksichtigung der Entwicklung von Infrastrukturen im kulturellen Bereich, welche vom Hafis-Institut und vom Haus hier in Berlin organisiert wird, und freue mich, dass Sie bei dieser Vortragsreihe mit zahlreichen SprecherInnen dabei sind. So yes, welcome to the webinar investigating the cultural adoption theory, the DCT in creative, innovative SMEs in industry sector and development of the cultural infrastructures and spaces organized by the Hafis Institute and the Haus here in Berlin. I'm very pleased to announce that we've got 7 speakers from different parts of the world united in this digital room here today. And I'm going to give you a quick glance over today's speakers. After some introducing words of Mr. Hamid Mohammadi, who is the head of the cultural department, of the Iranian embassy here in Berlin. We start with Professor Hamid Mohammadian, who is also the leader of today's conference. For like a quick overlook, Professor Hamid Mohammadian is an expert and professor for international sustainability and futures, and he's also the director for international management at the Fachhochschule des Mittelstands in Bielefeld in Germany. And he's been a visiting professor at several unis around Germany, especially in Berlin, but also in the UK and other international universities. And he developed his own concepts and theories, and such as the fifth wave, or the tomorrow age theory, the sustainability plus theory, and also the DO's culture theory, which we'll be discussing today. And he's being followed by Professor Carsten Dohmann, who is at the Fachhochschule des Mittelstands in Berlin. He is the academic director for international technology transfer management. The next one is going to be Professor Dricia Choid from Morocco. She teaches at the Muley Ismail University for comparative linguistics, communication, and media studies. Next, we've got Professor Feyzullah Gökdemir. He is also at the Fachhochschule des Mittelstands in Bielefeld, and he focuses on social work and educational theory. He is being followed by Professor Kamal Ziraoui, who teaches at the Hassan II of Casablanca University in Morocco. Then we've got Mr. Herb Wursten from the Netherlands. He's an associate partner of the Hofstede Insights Group. And last but not least, we've got Ayman Belhayat, who's a teacher at the Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah University, also in Morocco. Thank you all for being here. And now I'm going to hand over to Mr. Hamid Mohammadi.
Okay, thank you, Matab. Again, hello everyone. Herzlich willkommen. It's a great pleasure for me today to attend this webinar investigating the cultural adaptation theory. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation and thanks to all you for participating in this webinar. And a special thank for Professor Dr. Dus Mohammadian for his valuable attempts in forming and managing this webinar. Many thanks also to those who have joined us and they're watching us in this webinar. I would like to say a few words about the topic of the webinar. Nowadays, we see that the world gets smaller and smaller because of the very fast growth and development of communication and information technology. On the other hand, there are a huge number of immigrants annually from a country to another country, Every year, many refugees have to begin a new life in another country. However, every one has his own culture, but in the current world, all societies, communities should live together. They should communicate with each other and understand each other. It means that they culturally should adapt themselves. Every culture has its own values and specifications, same as beliefs, language, customs, heritage, and so on. The question is how people can have their own culture and values, and at the same time, they adopt themselves to other cultures. In today's world, we cannot consider the culture of any society, country, or region apart from other cultures. Each community must keep and preserve its own cultural values, and at the same time, it should find a way to adapt itself to other through a general and inclusive culture. When I speak of a general and inclusive culture, I certainly do not mean the dominant culture, or frankly, the culture of the United States, which is trying to dominate all over the world. I mean the culture with a general and global perspective, not a partial and regional one. This kind of culture should contain accepted principles and values from all cultures. I hope the respected speakers of this webinar give us more models and details that how small and medium enterprises can facilitate cultural adaptation through preserving their principles and values. Thank you for listening to me, and I would like to hear more from you. I leave the stage to Professor Dr. Dus Mohammadian. Thank you for listening to me. Professor Dus Mohammadian.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mohammadi. And thank you again, the respected keynote speakers in the group. And thank you all colleagues from Iran, Haus and Hafis Institute in Berlin for coordinating this conference. And I'm going to start my presentation because we have lack of time and we need to finish our conference before 3:30. That's why I try to present my topic in 10 minutes. But now I don't have access to share my screen, Dr. Mohammadi.
Yeah.
Can you please give me access to share my screen with you?
I think sure you have this access right now.
Yes, right now I have it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Is it possible to see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm going to start. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the theory of cultural adaptation and fifth wave theory, and regarding to the points we have in the conference title today: small medium-sized enterprises, cultural adaptation, innovative, creative small medium-sized enterprises, and how to make policies culturally to find spaces and infrastructure for this innovative and creative small medium-sized enterprises. The conference we have today is investigating the cultural adaptation theory, DCT, in creative, innovative SMEs in industry sectors and developing of the cultural infrastructures and spaces. Based off my result of my research during these years, we did some research regarding to sustainability indicators like cultural sustainability, 7 pillars of sustainability, infrastructure and development, data and information with a focus on 7Ps condition, information security and diplomacy for influencing imagination, D3 revolution, and social capital, HR competencies and technologies. I would like to kindly ask you, the other respected speakers, to turn off the microphone because of some noise. Concentrated is a little bit difficult. Three technological revolutions are shaping the dawn of 21st century, called D3 revolution. And I'm going to focus on these D3 revolutions in my speech because all of them, and one of them is exactly regarding to our topic. The development of internet and the shift toward a carbon-free global energy system. We call it D3 revolutions, which is decarbonization, decentralization, and digitalization. These three revolutions are shaping our new century. And you can see I put bold and yellow color for decentralization because in this case, how cultural policy should be designed by politicians is regarding to this D3, especially decentralization strategy. And these three global trends are changing the way we produce, distribute, and consume power. Also, we have the Sustainable Development Goals. These 17 Sustainable Development Goals is one of the biggest projects and the biggest social activity in the United Nations. And that was about more than 80 questionnaires and more than 7 million people about more than 3 years. In this agenda, we have three principles: human rights, cultural rights, sustainability, and equality, and 4 dimensions: social, environmental, economic, and peace. For sustainability, we have also another definition, which is livability plus quality of life. And in this case, if we talk about livability plus quality of life, always for livability, one foundation, one infrastructure is cultural factors. Then that shows culture has fundamental factor for livability, is also fundamental for sustainability. Factors for sustainability. We have 4 factors: a changing world, shared value, responsibility, and risk. And this can make guarantee for sustainable development, especially cultural sustainability. I have a model called 7Ps, or 7 pillars of sustainability. In this model, I'm going to talk about 7 pillars of sustainability, which is social, environment, economy, which we already had in the model of United Nations, and then politics, education, culture, and technique. And you can see a company, a business, a small, medium-sized enterprise, before Corona, after calculation of sustainability, you can see the blue one in the spider diagram, and then during the Corona, the red one. More before Corona is more harmonized, more balanced, and after the situation Corona as a crisis, you know, more smaller and more not balanced and not harmonized. Sustainability impacts. We have 7Ps model, 7 pillars. Also, we have livability plus quality of life. Then we can combine these 2 models, and then we can use desk research, interviews, and surveys, and then we can calculate the effective sustainability, which is equal sigma probability of each factor times impact of each factor times ratio or weight of each factor after normalization. The 5th wave theory, or tomorrow age theories, and the related theories, models, and concepts is also about the future, which has I have invented, introduced, and improved during 2010 to 2017. And we are going to have also a conference in October regarding to this theory from 13 to 15 of October in University of Oxford in London. And University of Applied Science, FHM, my university in Germany, and London Institute of Skill Development, they are the organizer of this conference, and we have more than 50 different co-organizers for establishing this conference. If we want to have an overview of this theory, you can see from 70,000 years ago when we have the cognition revolution, and then 13,000 years ago we have agricultural revolution, and then 500 years ago the scientific revolution, 300 years ago during the scientific revolution we had the industrial revolution, and then 100 years ago the first economic revolution, and now after 2020 the second revolution for economy. And actually in my theory, I called from 2020 to 2030, the edge of tomorrow. We have also 7 pillars of sustainability model, which I introduced you before, but culture has a very important fundamental role in this theory. And you can see all factors in this 7 Ps can influence each other, but culture has a fundamental infrastructure role. If we want to focus on cultural point, we can see cultural point always behind sustainability. And for small, medium-sized enterprises, which are social oriented, we have internal and external factors. Then all managers, they are trying to focus on innovation, creation, and then make a balance between internal and external perspectives. And also some pillars of these foundations, this model are foundation and infrastructure. First of all, culture, and then politics, and then education, and then social, and then environment. Culture is the first one, and then politicians should make the regulation and policy, and then education, training, and make a suitable social system. This cultural theory, this theory I made in 2017 for the first time, is focusing on 3 indexes with a cube. The first index is knowledge, know-how, and do-how, practically and theoretically. And second index is cultural differences. And third index is cultural adaptation. If we were to look at each index and which sub-criteria we have, you can see in knowledge, we have language, visual culture, visible culture, and invisible culture. In cultural differences, we have Hoested dimensions, Victor's dimensions, Troupinar's dimensions, Edward Hall dimensions, and globe, because we have 5 famous researches regarding to cultural dimensions. And then in cultural adaptation, we have, according to 7 pillars of sustainability model, which I made it in 2017, we have social competence, environmental competence, cultural competence, economic competence, educational competence, political competence, technological competence, communication competence, digital cultural transformation, because today digitalization is one of the D3 revolution I have already introduced you at the first of my speech. Legal, infrastructure transformation, and cross-cultural shock. And then in this theory, with using data analysis and combining the multi-pair regression, I can do calculation to find for one small medium-sized enterprise, especially innovative, creative small medium-sized enterprise, cultural adaptation in the new culture. We have a new concept in this theory called small medium-sized enterprises 5. In this kind of small medium-sized enterprise, or tomorrow SME, or hybrid SME, we just not focus on economy. We also focus on CSR, social responsibility, environmental friendly, energy and resource saving, and future planning. Priority of this model says, at first, we need to focus on environmental responsibility, secondly, social cohesion, and then economic efficiency is the last one. This is really important for this topic. Then, if we want to conclude, then we say business cultural economy is transferring from a traditional one to innovative data and blue-green sustainable economy. Invisible culture, I already told you in the model, has the visible one 30%. We can see like language, food, tradition, but invisible part we cannot see, like the points like philosophy, religion, beliefs, the way of laughing, happiness, sadness, and etc. Now I'm going to giving you consulting how to do that. First of all, thinking globally, acting regionally, with using partnership, cooperation with governments, comprehensive strategic planners, resource managers, and energy experts, process facilitators, politicians, universities, researchers, academic people, SMEs, and institutions, communities, social societies, and cities. And if we want to conclude my speech today, I say in this speech we have 11 points for conclusion. D3 or the D3 revolution with a focus on decentralization for cultural policy makers, especially in Germany. In Germany, the topic culture and cultural policy is not going to be managed by one ministry or one organization. It's decentralization. Different organizations, they have some responsibility regarding to this topic. Number 2, comprehensive strategic plan. Number 3, budget, especially for the foreign affairs. Number 4, supporting small, medium-sized enterprises with the focus on new concept SME 5. Number 5, politicians and their role. Number 6, vocational training. Number 7, universities, researchers, and academic people for know-how, do-how. Conferences, events, they have also very important role. Sustainable governance, allocating the resources based on 7PS model, and government strategic level for policy making, and private sector for executive level. Thank you so much for your attention. Now I would like to invite the second speaker, Professor Castor Duman, to start his speech. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hamid, for handing over to me. That was really interesting and sometimes a little bit too fast. I want to look later in some of your slides, yeah?
I think in the near future, the Hafis Institute will provide the video and send to us, then you can watch the video, of course.
Not only the video, I want to see all the details. Okay, so now I just start to share my screen. And can I have a feedback? Is it seeable?
Yes, of course.
Okay, perfectly. So,
yeah. Manage it in 10 minutes.
Yes, of course. I just raise up here. My topic for today is the technological cultural adoption challenges, insights, faculties, and academics. And I want to use here a practical research project, what we did with my colleagues, who is also attending here parallel in the online meeting, Ian O'Donovan. And this is a short overview, what we figured out for the academic side. So that was a project which was related to virtual reality. And as you can see here in this picture, virtual reality stands for the next generation of technology equipment, which has an introduction into lectures and also into universities and different purposes, or for different purposes. The big question what drives us or has driven us was where to start or how to start, to get an feeling what is the current status about using virtual reality technologies. Then was a big question how to speed up this implementation process. Is it necessary to go back to the typical lessons learned from iterative steps and so on? How is the implementation and practice organized? And also we have given us our own an outlook to go forward with this project. The project itself is officially ended, but it is still in use in forms of training and teaching programs, which are available for free for everyone. Please feel free, if you are interested here at the beginning, to ask for these training programs. What is the status quo? The status quo, which we figured out, was what exactly is the technical world? How is the situation of implementing new technologies, especially in the case of virtual reality? What kind of level of cognitions or interpretations and preparations are necessary for professors at universities in higher education environment to use it? And how is the transfer process of this learning process into the direction of students? And some questions more. The last one here I have also marked with this arrow is what kind of typical lines or barriers, or what is the red line and barriers between an existing curriculum and the new generation of teaching programs in universities, and how is here the process to proceed or to push to bring these technologies into reality inside of or among of the colleagues in the higher education. Who sets the beats? That's a typical question. As the question also we were asking was, what is our position in Germany? And this one is not really an old graph about the leading countries, the leading innovative economies worldwide. It is more like mirroring about the last decades. All the time on the top positions are the same countries. And if we are looking here also to the east, it is surprisingly not really China. It is South Korea. And South Korea has the most advanced and developed education system at the moment. It is a little bit linked to the United States, but the technical basics which they are using, yeah, the technical, equipment, what they have in use is so amazing that this country is definitely worth to look into it. And also here, our close neighbors in Finland, in the north of Europe, they are here playing a leading role in the implementation of new technologies, especially virtual realities. We have developed here in forms of, or we have tried to figure out in forms of training programs and teaching programs, what is the current status, how difficult is it, how are the entrance barriers, where are the entrance barriers to bring virtual reality techniques and technologies into big audience halls, in smaller classroom, in small work groups. All the things we tried to cover up and to discover in our project. I don't want to go too deep into the details here, but if you are interested, then please have a look by your own in our webpage, which will be announced at the end. Let me now come to one of the points which Hamid also targeted in his speech. Information, security, and imagination. Hamid, right? That was one of the points exactly. You figured out within high school. Research, yeah. And then one in your three-dimensional diagrams was technology and communication. And suddenly, yeah, not suddenly, maybe just by incident, it fits extremely well good to my slides, what I have prepared. That is a typical picture, what you all have in mind. Now we have the academic side on the left side, or maybe where else, and on the other side, opposition, the economy. That's our job as professors, as researchers, to bring together both worlds. And thanks also for this interesting headline for today's conference, Hamid. That's exactly the point, what you have well figured out. I don't want to go really deep into it, but the status quo, the normal life, what we can see every day is a little bit of confusing, yeah, why the technology doesn't work with the first switching on or whatever. So we have wonders, we have question marks, we have positive arguments, something like else. But at the end, we have a distance based on different forms of knowledge, the physical distance, academic sites, closed jobs, university sectors, and the SMEs somewhere else, maybe in a city, in a big country, or whatever. And we have different forms of expectations which are coming together. What is now happened in the academic side about culture? There is a big gap, what we have identified in our project. And that's what we are calling phlegmatism. And this phlegmatism leads to a point that both worlds are dividing from each other. The distance becomes bigger, yeah? So, and in this sink, yeah, that is a pool or a reservoir for new items which are influencing negative this transfer process. And here I want to underline some words like prejudice, less imagination, strong doubts, and at the end, and that's as the worst case, a boycott of using new forms of technologies. So the knowledge itself does exist, or the difference in knowledges does exist, also the distance, but becomes much more bigger. And the expectations is also growing up based on the longer distance. We can solve it. So the solving points, what we should take into account is more effort and aspiration, yeah, to do the job much more slower, step by step, iterative, what I mentioned in the introduction. It must be all the time an ongoing process. And gentlemen and ladies, it should start now. And believe me, tomorrow is definitely too late. The COVID-19 crisis is not an execution. Yeah, it's definitely not. We are all in an extra loop. Yeah, what we are driving through now, but it's not really a penalty in time. We are all affected, and we should use, yeah, this, let me say, time of slowness to look into the opportunities to bring these new technologies into life. The reason why I'm telling this is that's the next generation of students. Yeah, the young kids which are familiar with new technologies, and their expectation is to use at the end robots. And we as teachers, as professors, as researchers, we have to provide our own, we have to prepare our own to this generation. Yeah, they are coming, let's say, tomorrow into our universities, but the time is running. What kind of conclusions can we just summarize here in the first step? At the moment, it's in the editor's modus, it's not animated, but maybe just let me look into, is it possible to go into an full screen modus? Yeah. Less is more. We figured out that it is a good idea to reduce the software, the entrance barriers of using virtual realities for professors, for non-technicians, for, let's say, professors which are teaching management skills or something else. The universities are prepared, they are curious to use it, and but mostly the first users are standing alone in a huge university which is represented by different disciplines, colleagues, and something else. The software is under a huge development process. As with the next years, months, there will be much more better software available. And this software allows us also to use it as standards. So that means the interfaces are much more proper, prepared for, much more better prepared for and proper use. So how can I just go forward? Second conclusion. The reality, what I mentioned before, it is even less experience available. Some of the colleagues, they have vague ideas, also preconceptions, imagination, what Hamid mentioned in one of his factors, must be triggered. It can be engaged and can be started, but we have to pick up also the colleagues, yeah, from the different disciplines and faculties. And believe me, that's definitely not easy. So what will be the future bring? Learning and training. Yeah, these are the well-known concepts from the past, but we have to bring them also forward into the future. It looks easy, it sounds easy, but it isn't. Yeah, it must be implemented in forms of curriculums and new modules and teaching styles. We should start definitely also a discussion how to find a balance between different technical presentations and standard presentations. Yeah, let's say in paper, not everything can be made on a computer, but we are going forward into this digital world. The possibilities which can be opened or can be activated will be a reactivated curiosity from colleagues, a new teaching format, what I mentioned before, and we can just set reachable horizons, and that's new. Reachable horizon means not that we can we are doing the things here just for fun. We can definitely, with better interfaces, also integrate the teaching content, and then it's available not only for the students, but also for colleagues and in an international or let's say interdisciplinary exchange among faculties. And short third conclusion. We should talk also with our colleagues, non-technical experts, about existing barriers. We have to carry them, we have to bring them down, we have to open the doors for them, we have to open the mindset of the colleagues, and then it helps also to use it from the beginning, step by step. Cross-disciplinary research culture, I think, should be integrated. It's also a long story, available since several years or decades, but not really well implemented, not based on typical new technologies. We are all using computers, we are using the internet, we are using smartphones, but this gentleman and also the lady on board will be the future to integrate virtual reality-based technologies. Not only in presentations, also in the research field outside of the universities. And then at the end, it can be implemented in forms of new content for lectures. And progressive or in progress in the knowledge transfer itself with better processes, more ideas, and this leads to a competitive advantage for our students, and then later, and that is the conclusion, to our target group, maybe SMEs or the big industry. Yeah, Here in short outlook, also the culture itself does exist, must be a little bit reformed. New skills are definitely necessary. A never-ending learning process, yeah, what we are faced, all of us, with. We need definitely more use cases, positive as negative, and we need more exchange and experience. Also, thanks also here for this opportunity to exchange with all of you. The technology is still ready, but not perfect. Everyone knows, but it's only a question of time. The innovation comes then automatically by an increased usability, yeah, and similar handling like we have now with smartphones, maybe, as a plug and play procedures, and the target groups at the end will be. So far, we have closed the gap, yeah, of phlegmatism, lecturers, students, and at the end, engineers and managers. And I guess now I'm just here, reach my last slide. Yeah, feel free to ask me. I'm ready to start with you any kind of discussion, yeah, online, offline, by email or whatever. Feel free to ask me or my colleague. Here are the contact data, and you will just can contact me via Hamid. That's my part, my introduction for you. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you, Professor Karsten Duman, because of very valuable presentation, and also thank you because I know you had a lecture and you had to make a break and come to our conference now. Now I'm going to invite Professor Teresa Treat. I hope the pronunciation is right. You were a little bit later to the Zoom room because of some technical issues, but we are very happy to have you here as a professor, as an expert, and also because of your valuable experience during the time you were in UNESCO. And now I would like to invite you to start your presentation, but because of lack of time, I would like to kindly ask you, please manage it in 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dus. Thank you for inviting me to be a member of this panel of experts. I had some problems with the PowerPoint, but I can manage given presentation without it. So today, with all this discussion, I listened carefully to your presentation and to the second presenter. Very interesting indeed. My question to him is, how can we include virtual reality in our teaching? Is it specific for science disciplines, or can faculties of arts and humanities communication benefit from it? How can we benefit from it? Because when we hear virtual reality, we see it as it is something really distant from our lives. It is for playing, it is for inventing in robotics and all, but not close to our everyday lives. If you can help us understand this, we will be grateful. Professor Dus, always I have listened to you many times, and the question to you is about the cultural adaptability in your theory. My intervention will emphasize the interrelationship between language, communication, and culture, and of information literacy in everyday life, in the digital age, and in the time of convergence of communication, and in the time of the explosion of communication. It is titled Linguistic literacy, a key component in intercultural understanding. So I will first introduce the UNESCO and United Nations University Network on Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue, of which I have the honor to be a member since its creation in 2011 in the first forum, international forum on media and information literacy. I see this occasion to welcome the London Institute of Skills Development, which has become an associate member of this network of universities. Brief presentation. This network was launched in 2011, as I said, in the first international forum on media information literacy and intercultural dialogue. It is also conceptualized as a global chair on media and information literacy because it is considered as a revolving chair that hosts annual activities of member universities during celebration of the Global Media and Information Literacy Week, which takes place on yearly basis since 2011. The Global Media and Information Literacy Week was officially adopted by the General Conference of UNESCO in November 2019, and it was adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations in March 2020. The first international forum on media information literacy held in Fez at the University of Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah in 2011 came out with the first declaration which combined both media literacy and information literacy. Before that, media literacy was studied apart and information literacy apart. They were not put on the same umbrella. This network also has a yearly publication called the Milid Yearbook, in which members and all those interested publish every year. So what is the relationship between language, communication, and intercultural literacy? And media and information literacy and the work we do in the network. In fact, media information literacy is a powerful facilitator of intercultural dialogue, mutual understanding, and a cultural understanding of people. Intercultural literacy is a key component of media information literacy, as we should be able to relate media and information to different contexts and different cultures, and we should also be able to use effective cross-cultural communication to this effect. There is no doubt, and you would all agree with me, that most of the ills of our modern times have cultural origins. Therefore, understanding co-cultures in one's own country, and please pay attention, I'm using co-cultures, I'm not using subcultures. Co-cultures in one's own country as well as foreign cultures is a key literacy skill in the 21st century. Believing in cultural diversity, constructive dialogue, and peace communication is, I think, the threshold for a peaceful world based on mutual understanding and mutual respect. So in what follows, I will present the idea that understanding starts with understanding the self. Understanding the other cultures starts with understanding one's own culture. Respecting the other starts with respecting oneself and one's own culture. Now I move to the linguistic side, linguistic literacy and intercultural understanding. Linguistic literacy, in fact, involves both language awareness and conscious communication. All have an unconscious knowledge about language, which enables us to communicate in different contexts with varying degrees of efficiency. So the aim of this part is to bring to the consciousness this unconscious ignition. The focus will be laid on awareness about how the process of communication takes place for a better understanding of the self and the other, and both at the discursive relationships in which we are involved. As communication starts with the self, the first aspect to tackle is self-awareness. To improve one's self-awareness by being aware of who we are, how we think, and which beliefs and value systems we hold. We should also be self-critical by analyzing the way we think and questioning our attitudes and beliefs to make sure that they are not based on unconscious biases or stereotypes that may lead to prejudice or exclusion of some people. Equally important is to be aware of how we communicate with others and how we react to views, attitudes, beliefs, and value systems of others. At this very basic level, we can see hints of openness if we have an accepting attitude vis-a-vis different perceptions and values. In the opposite case, we have to take time for introspection, because self-understanding, self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-respect are at the origin of understanding and respecting the others. Likewise, understanding the communication process is equally important because it helps us understand ourselves, both as individuals and as social beings. Communication happens when there is an interaction between an internal stimuli within the self and the external stimuli in the context of communication. This shows that personal elements like personality traits, frame of reference, attitudes, and perceptions are elements that each individual brings with him or her to the table of debate. This should be kept in mind for effective intercultural dialogue. In order to understand others and to understand their feelings and concerns, communication should never be taken too personally. Language awareness refers to understanding how language works, how language is encoded and decoded, both at the discursive level and at the level of encoding social and power relationships. It is also about the way we give to our wordings, the wordings that we use in our everyday life, or wordings to which we are exposed in various communication contexts and platforms. It is also important to keep in mind that the way we name people, places, things, and events impacts on our perceptions and attitudes. We should also keep in mind different wordings of the same thing lead to different meanings and interpretations and convey different underlying attitudes and beliefs. See, for example, these labels used for the same events or people And you can see that there is a big difference between calling something protest, the difference between protest and vandalism, difference between protesters and insurrectionists, difference between protesters and terrorists, difference between COVID-19 and Chinese virus, difference between war in Iraq, war on Iraq, and Iraq war. The difference between the use of the active voice to portray Hamas actions and the use of the passive voice to report mass killings of Palestinians by Israel. And the question, why do we use ethnic cleansing instead of using genocide or crimes against humanity? I would like to highlight a subtle type of organized disinformation, which is the careful use of language to influence people's perceptions, attitudes, and actions. The Iraq war was called Operation Iraq Freedom by the Bush administration. The word freedom is used to construct a positive attitude and the belief that the war was meant to help Iraqi people get rid of dictatorship and build democracy, while facts prove totally the opposite. This war was also referred to as a clean war, using smart bombs, conducting surgical operations to construct a favorable public opinion and to make people believe that there were no casualties in civilians or American army because smart bombs attacked only military targets with high precision, described to be like surgical operations. This war used embedded journalism that reported only what was allowed to them to report. But Iraqi people had another story which did not find its way to audiences. It was proved later on that there were no weapons of mass destruction, and thus that war was not that clean and that smart. Concluding remark. The Iraq War gives a stunning example of the skillful use of language for dubious purposes to construct and control public opinion, helped in that by cutting-edge technology and embedded journalism. The divisive bipolarized approach used by former American presidents Donald Trump throughout his presidential term and his unwillingness to trust democratic institutions in last elections is another example of the disastrous effects of organized disinformation. What happened at the Capitol on the 6th of January 2021 is alarming. It is this organized disinformation that constitutes a threat to democracy, to citizenship, cultural diversity, constructive dialogue, and which should be combated by all means. Language is power. Language is powerful, not only in the sense that it is part of our identity and part of our belongings, but also because it enables individuals and institutions to create the reality that suits them. What we communicate does not reflect reality because it is filtered by our own lenses and how we perceive the reality referred to in the message. This is of particular relevance to media and public communication. This is why we should not be locked in one-sided perspective and dogmatic views and attitudes. We should be open to multiple perspectives We should diversify our sources of information, and we should empathize with others for a better future for us. We are all different but equal in rights and dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting to listen to you, especially the last part. Dr. Dus had to go, so I'm inviting Professor Feyzullah Gökdemir to start with his presentation.
Vielen Dank für die Einladung, mein lieber Freund Hamid. Ich bin gerne bei Ihnen. Ich werde heute noch mal kurz über die Sozialisation, Kultur und migrations-alevitische Migranten in Deutschland kurz mal referieren. Kurz zu meiner Info, ich bin Professor für Soziale Arbeit. Ich bin als Arbeitsmigrant nach Deutschland eingereist, habe in Deutschland studiert. Nach der Promotion habe ich angefangen, an der Fachhochschule als Professor tätig zu sein. Ich werde heute nochmal von der Sozialisation erklären, nochmal kurz mal erwähnen, was sind die Aleviten? Was eine Funktion hat das nochmal, diese Sozialisation bei den alevitischen Gesellschaften in der Migrationssoziologie? Besonders, wenn wir nochmal nach Emile Durkheim Sozialisation definieren, ist das Vergesellschaftung des Menschen, Prägung der menschlichen Persönlichkeit durch gesellschaftliche Bedingungen, dass der Mensch in seiner Umgebung nochmal an die Gesellschaft, Umwelt anpasst. Besonders möchte ich gerne kurz mal die Aleviten darstellen, weil in der deutschen Gesellschaft die Aleviten eine zentrale Rolle spielen. Vor dem Hintergrund ab 2014 oder 2015, wo immer die Diskussion war, wer von den Zuwandererfamilien integriert sind, das hat auch unsere Bundeskanzlerin Angela Merkel dargestellt, dass die Aleviten, wir sind mit türkischer Herkunft in Deutschland sehr gut integriert haben. Besonders die Sozialisationsdebatte ist es bei den Aleviten-Familien auch extrem sehr wichtig. Wenn man nochmal mit dem sunnitischen Gesellschaft, mit alevitischen Gesellschaft in der deutschen Gesellschaft so betrachten, hatten wir nochmal festgestellt in unseren Untersuchungen, dass besonders bei der Sozialisation, besonders bei den alevitischen Migranten ziemlich hoch ist als bei den anderen. Das liegt auch daran, dass der Alevitismus besonders eine zentrale Rolle spielt bei den alevitischen Community, sage ich mal so. Man geht davon aus, dass in Deutschland 500.000 bis 800.000 Aleviten türkischer Herkunft leben. Und besonders, wenn wir nochmal diese Situation der alevitischen Migranten in Deutschland so betrachten, sind das überwiegend Intellektuelle, Akademiker, Politiker in Deutschland leben. Ein weiterer Punkt ist es nochmal, dass ich gerne nochmal darstellen möchte, ist es nochmal, dass wir mit der Universität ein Projekt vorhaben, wie wir nochmal die Sozialisationsprozesse in der deutschen Gesellschaft, in der österreichischen Gesellschaft vergleichen möchten. Warum ist das der Sozialisationsprozess, Integration bei den Aleviten so weiterentwickelt? Das möchten wir innerhalb der empirischen Forschung auch zwei Länder vergleichen. Da ich Leiter in der Lehre bin, muss ich mich gleich wieder verabschieden, lieber Hamid. Das habe ich dir auch gesagt gehabt. Und ein weiterer Punkt ist es nochmal, die ich gerne mal erwähnen möchte, ist es nochmal bei den Alevitismus, bei der Alevitismus, türkische Herstammung in Deutschland ist der humanistische Aspekt eine sehr wichtige Rolle. Der humanistische Aspekt, besonders bei der Sozialisationsprozess, spielt eine zentrale Rolle. Ich bedanke mich, lieber Hamid, dass ich heute kurz mal zu Sozialisation alevitischer Migranten was erzählen könnte. Ich bitte um Entschuldigung, liebe Teilnehmer und Teilnehmerinnen. Ich muss jetzt wieder raus zu meiner Lehre. Wenn Sie Fragen haben, stehe ich gerne zur Verfügung. Sonst, Hamid, kannst du mich jederzeit nochmal anschreiben. Wenn Sie Fragen haben, bin ich gerne bereit, Ihre Fragen entgegenzunehmen.
Vielen Dank für diesen kurzen, aber dennoch sehr spannenden Beitrag. Dann würde ich einfach weiter fortsetzen. So, if Professor Kamal Zerawi, it would be your turn.
Okay, vielen Dank. Ich muss mich verabschieden. Ich wünsche allen ein gutes Gelingen. Tschüss.
Tschüss.
Hello everyone, this is Kamal Zahrawi from Morocco. I work as a senior statistical analyst at Prof Action Conseil and also a prof at Hassan University. My topic is about the determinants of international migration. Another way, I will speak about theories that explain the migration. Why do people migrate? Let's start by defining migration. As you know, migration is the movement of the people from an area to another area. We can speak about internal migration will be in country, international migration when migration is between countries. And we also speak about permanent migration and temporary migration. We have to make difference between migrant and refugee. As you know, a migrant is a person who chooses to move from an area to another area. A refugee is someone who is forced to move from the area. According to International Organization for Migration, the number of migrants is an increase since 1995, from 174 million to 272 million in 2019. 52% of international migrants are male, and the most of them are of working age, I mean 75 years. Europe and Asia are the most preferred destination in the world. They comprising 61% of the global international migrant stock combined. Let's now speak about the theories that explain the determinant of migration. To understand that theories, we have to put it in categories. Micro levels are speaking about the individual value. Meso levels, when we speak about the social network, and macro levels, we are speaking about the macro level opportunity structures. In macro theory of migration, the most of them is called the neoclassical macro. That theory explained migration by the difference in expected incomes and wage level. There are another micro theory of migration, the dual labor market theory, that separates market into categories, primary sectors and secondary sectors. Laborers in the primary sector have a good job with the good pay and good job rules and security. The migrant choose the secondary sectors because the first one is attractive only for the native works. The micro theories of migration, at this time we are speaking about the neoclassical micro level migration theory that based on the difference of incomes into two countries by calculating the cost benefit of the incomes. In this time, we have to understand that in micro theories, there is a notion of cost, migration cost. People or individual choose to move until their benefit between the incomes or expected incomes and migration cost. Meso-level theory of migration. In this time, we're speaking about the family decision. Migration is not an individual decision according to the theory of new economic of labor migration. This is family decision that explicitly link the migration decision to the impact of migration with remittance. In meso-level migration theory, we are speaking about the remittance, the link of this migration decision and the remittance. Finally, where there is another theory of migration. We are speaking about pull and push factors theory. In push factors are all the negative things that make people want to move to a new area. For example, war. Pull factors are positive aspects that attract people to move to a place, good employment opportunities, religion, freedom of religion, etc. Migration usually happens as a result of a combination of these push and pull factors. In this table, I put all or the most push and pull factors. In push factor, we can find low employment, high crime, profiler that push people to move. In pull factors, we can find higher employment, safe society, low risk of natural hazard, etc. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that richly packed presentation. We're actually coming to the end. Our last speaker is Ayman Belhayat.
Do you hear me? Hello. Hi in English, salam in Arabic, hello in German. I think I'm right. Do you hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so thank you all for these wonderful presentations, and thanks, a great, deal of thanks goes to Professor Dr. Dus, who gave us this valuable opportunity to present. So my presentation is going to be about like 3 main points. So first of all, I'm a teacher of English, and also I'm a PhD candidate. So, and one of my points of interest is culture and the teaching of culture. So I'm going to talk briefly about what is culture. I think you know all these points here, just to remind ourselves. And what is culture? And number 2, the importance of teaching culture, because teaching culture today is very important, as we know that's because of globalization. So the globe is like a small village, as we say. And culture adaptation, because one of the goal, or let's say the ultimate goal of teaching culture is making students reach this level of cultural adaptation. So when they leave, for example, Morocco to study in the United States or in Europe, so they have to be skilled, culturally speaking. And I want to give some programs here in Morocco, exchange programs that teachers of English and also students of English benefit abroad, basically in USA. Is it right? Do you hear me? Yes? All right. So what is culture? So culture, actually, we have different definitions of culture. So everyone who gives a definition of culture, it's different depending on his own culture. So please, we have to keep this in mind. But generally speaking, it means to cultivate, and it's taken from Latin, cultura, to cultivate. And it includes everything about a specific group of people, talking about life, way of life, like arts, belief, institutions, codes of manners, dress, language, religion, rituals, arts, norms of behavior, etc. And culture refers to a group or community which shares common experiences that shape the way its members understand the world. It includes groups that we are born into, such as race, national origin, gender, class, or religion. For example, it's possible to acquire a new culture by moving to a new country or region. When we think of culture this broadly, we realize that we all belong to many cultures. Now, the second point is the importance of teaching culture. So, for example, here in Morocco, when we teach high school students, we teach them both the language and the culture. And we have a golden rule that we use here in Morocco for high school teachers of English. So language and culture are the same faces are two faces of the same coin. So you cannot teach a language without teaching a culture. And so hence, teaching language and culture are interconnected. You cannot teach language without culture. And actually, language teaching is culture teaching. You cannot teach English without like teaching the culture of American people, of Australian people, of any group of people who speak that language. And here in Morocco, we try to expose students to two main different cultures, the American culture and to the British culture, and to compare it and to relate it to the Moroccan culture. So when you teach culture, so you give students room to more authentic language learning. You not only learn the language, they feel, they touch, they smell, they see the foreign language and the foreign people through realia, through movies, through documentaries. Sometimes you can have excursion to another country, a trip. And as I told you that we have today some programs where students from Morocco go to the States, the United States, and vice versa. The American students come to experience the culture of Morocco, high school students and university students. One of the aims of teaching language is that it motivates students to learn language. So culture gives room to students to experience the culture. So it's like a kind of motivation to them. And also we dispel myths. So when students learn a language, they have a lot of myths. Sometimes they acquire it through movies, sometimes through YouTube today. So people use a lot of YouTube and today we have also social media. So they have like misconceptions, but teachers, through teaching cultures and basically discussions with them, we dispel myths, okay? And they start to be open-minded. Students become more empathetic. Students gain better understanding of the lessons and the people of that country. They become more open-minded, okay? It's not my point of view which is correct. Like, I'm Moroccan, so my culture, Moroccan culture is the best, or German, or American, or British, no. So this is not open-mindedness, and we shouldn't do that as teachers of English. Students also feel more confident and safe using the language, and they are prepared for the workplace in the future. So many Moroccan students go abroad, go to Europe, go to the United States, go to Canada today. A lot of people here in Morocco go to Canada. So they have like good preparation, okay? Good preparation to meet people and to be excellent and skilled in the workplace. And as I told you before, that cultural adaptation is like the main goal. So we equip students through English, the language of English, the culture, the skills, all the skills and all the notions to be like intelligent, culturally speaking. And cultural adaptation, you know it. So it's like adapting to a new environment and to a new group of people, and be like good citizens in that new place, in that new environment. But also we teach students that there is like let's say we have stages. So cultural adaptation, anyone. So we teachers or the students here in Morocco, we face this and we teach. So we are taught, for example, I was once participating in a program, Fulbright program in America, and we had this orientation, so we know it, and we also help students know it. So there is like the first phase, which is the honeymoon phase. We are happy, United States, let's say Canada. So we are like, wow, this is the honeymoon phase. And then there is like the crisis. So we are, let's say, we call it the cultural shock. We feel that we are not good in that environment. But then with the help of yourself and other people around you, you recover. And this is stage 3. It's called recovery. And then you have the adjustment. It's like you become like you return to the honeymoon phase, the first one. So you adjust yourself because you have learned a lot. My last point is I'm going to give you some programs here in Morocco for teachers and for students whose aims are to teach students the language and also the culture. So for, yes, for the teachers, we have 3 main programs. Number 1, Teachers of Critical Languages program. I participated in this, so I know everything about the culture, the cultural shock, how you can show your culture, how to deal with people. So so we learned also something new there actually in America, and we came back here to Morocco and we taught these things. I'm talking only here about the culture, because yes, for example, we have like the culture of America. No, we have a lot of cultures in America: north, south, east, west, regions. All right. The second program is Fulbright Distinguished Awards. And the third one is International Leaders in Education program. So these 3 programs. And for students, we have Kennedy Local Youth Exchange and Study Yes program. We have Tomorrow's Leaders program, and we have RISE initiatives. And all these programs help not only teachers, but also students to be culturally fit, culturally intelligent, because we no longer live in our countries. Like now, I'm in Morocco, I'm meeting you in Germany, people from different places. So we live in a global world. And thank you for your time and for your attention.
Thank you so much for that passionate presentation. It was fun to listen to. And we're actually at the end. So thank you all for these wonderful presentations and delivering new impressions. And thank you for being here. Dr. Mohammadi, is there anything else you would like to add? Okay. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and being here. I hope you have a wonderful day and see you hopefully soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Much. See you soon, another day.